So this is the Cannabis Forecast Ganjapreneur panel. My name is Scott Bettano. I am CEO of a mobile app called Social High. We are Facebook for the cannabis community, and we're just one example of the ancillary businesses out there. We have an amazing panel of people here today. We have Mary McAvoy, former president, publisher of High Times. Greg James, VP of Sales of Canaccord, curator of the cannabis industry. We have Nick Kofovich, CEO of Kush Bottles. Greg Dammit, owner of Dank Dispensary. Vanna Shosky will be joining us soon. Oh, there she is. Lost my place for a minute. Susan Shosky, she's the owner of Green Mountain Harvest and Trim Company. Robert Hunt from Tutora Capital. So I'd like to kick the panel off by asking these guys, how did they come into the industry? Because I know a lot of people here on the panel, I've done my research on them, didn't start out here. Nick, let's start with you. What brought you around with Kush Bottles and what brought you into the cannabis industry?
So Kush Bottles, we started the company in 2010, and we were really the motivating factor behind it was we saw an industry that nobody was really looking at. And as you can tell by the room here today, a lot more people are looking at the industry. So we had a little advantage that we were operating in California, and it was an underground market. And I had just got back from playing basketball in Missouri, and I couldn't even believe what was happening, that this was actually going on. People were able to buy marijuana legally through the medical program. And so our first thought was, how do we come up with a business model that services this industry, sort of like the picks and shovels of the gold rush. We knew it was going to take off eventually, and that's when we stumbled upon packaging and really started the company with one product that we brought to the market, the Pop Top bottle.
Thanks. And so you went the picks and shovels route, and Greg, you have Dank Dispensary, and you went after the plant itself.
Yeah, I owned a large landscape construction company, and the downturn hit in 2004. For the next 3 years, we kind of looked to diversify. So in 2009 September, I started Dank Dispensary. The market in Colorado was really slow to gain traction. So the first 3 years, it was break even to losing proposition. But as soon as recreation hit in 2014, we're all doing a lot better now. And also I'm involved in Kush Bottles now and a few other things outside of the market.
Thanks. And Susan, you kind of went spin-off from there and saw the need for a trim and harvest company.
Correct.
So how did that come to light?
I've been a healer since the 70s, an alternative healer, and I saw what the product could do for patients. And so I wanted to create a harvest and trim company that could not only serve the growers, be a one-stop shop, but make sure that we have non-contaminated medicine for patients. And so I started with 4 trimmers and myself, and have grown to a multi-million-dollar company. I had no clue, but it's wonderful. So I work with the governor's office, setting better business practices, that kind of thing.
Excellent. And Greg, Canaccord is now going down the line and going to pre-package that stuff for us. Tell us how Canaccord came to life.
Well, I am relatively new to the industry, so I bring that perspective. About a year ago, I spent 20 years in the technology industry and software industry, and worked alongside a couple of the co-founders of Canaccord at a product development software company, and was watching what they were doing. And at one point about a year ago, I saw what Michael Bork was doing to help patients, medical marijuana patients here in Massachusetts, to have a better experience and to help self-titrate and dose more accurately and more conveniently, and really make cannabis more accessible. And the reaction I saw from these patients to what he was doing and what he was inventing with the CanaCloud system moved me, and it moved me enough to bring me into this industry. I wanted to be a part of it and make a contribution. So we're pretty excited about what we're doing and So I switched out of technology and into cannabis.
And Robert, you've seen potential in all these things and gone the route of investing. And how did you get started? I know you didn't just jump in as an investor, but read your background. You had a company you sold in the beginning as well.
Yeah, I got involved in cannabis back in the early 90s and stayed in the industry long before this side of the industry existed. And after law school, decided I wanted to get back involved in cannabis, but I didn't want to do anything that would risk my professional licensure. So I looked for a way to re-enter with an arm's length process. So I ended up opening up a string of hydroponics garden supply stores. Some of you here in Massachusetts might have known my store in Peabody called Evergreen Garden Center. But I had stores in Colorado as well under the name Rocky Mountain Hydroponics, as well as stores in Maine and New Hampshire. I sold that company in 2013 and took over as an executive at one of the publicly traded OTC companies in the space. Exited from that company as well, since made investments directly out of my just personal portfolio into dispensaries or into cultivations. And then realized with the network of 80 to 100 dispensaries I was servicing with my former business that using that network to start a small pool of capital to invest into the cannabis industry would be the smart move. So I teamed up with a few Wall Street veterans, and now we've got the single biggest private equity fund that exists in the cannabis space.
Impressive. And Mary, you're an OG. You're like me. With High Times, you have probably seen this industry shape and change more than anyone. What do you think about where it was and how far it's come? Where do you think it's heading?
That's a great question. I've got just under 20 years with High Times at this point right now. When I started in the circulation department. I mean, High Times was primarily a newsstand publication because nobody wanted it coming to their house under a subscription. They didn't want the mailman to see it. They didn't want mom to see it either. So it was really a newsstand, and that was what I came to them for. And what I really loved about that was it wasn't like working on Cosmo or People or Good Housekeeping. It was a tough sell. When I got there, Barnes & Noble insisted that High Times be polybagged, and it was in the section with Penthouse and Hustler. We were pot pornography to the world. So we had it was a fun battle to, if you truly believed in this brand, and we all believed in the plant. I mean, for 42 years, that's what High Times has been all about, is fighting the good fight. And I'll tell you, the changes that we have seen over these last 10 years, really last 15 years, has been pretty phenomenal. Right now, I'm sure a lot of you know about the cannabis cups, the High Times cannabis cups that we've had on the West Coast. Starting with one in San Francisco in 2010, where we had no idea what was going to happen. And the line started and kept forming, and it was up on the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. So the cops absolutely stopped what we were doing and said, if you let another person in here, we're going to close you down. So suddenly we realized that there's a world out there of you people that want to know, you want to go to seminars, you want to know what's going on out there. Every person in this room wants to get more involved in the cannabis industry. And these people here have started what everybody wants to do. As I said, I started in circulation. Everybody has legal background, or they're in insurance, or they're in security, or they're in finance. Every industry in this country right now is looking to get into the cannabis world. I mean, this is the tech boom that was happening then. It's the cannabis boom right now. And I would encourage everybody who, if you're in it, get more involved in it. If you're not in it, start working for caregivers or go to a retail shop. Learn your strains. Learn, cut some buds too. Trim some buds. Learn the strains. Because the world is looking for the pros right now, and you guys can be those pros.
That's an excellent point. This is my third NECC. First one I came to was in February 2015 as a spectator, much like you. As a matter of fact, I was sitting out there with an electronic monitoring anklet on because I got in trouble for marijuana. And I wanted to go the legal route. I wanted to be part of the business. And here I am, a year later, up here speaking. So you started, you're here, you're involved. So Nick and Greg, I got a question for the two of you guys since you work together. What's a common mistake you see with people trying to get into the industry? Some of the mistakes people make, like maybe they rush in too fast, or they have a different idea of what this industry actually is.
All right, so part of what I do, Denver Consulting Company, we write licenses, SOP manuals, procedures, and all that kind of stuff. Kind of teach people what we've done with our IP. One of our biggest challenges working with new clients is just like any other business, they want to put the cart before the horse. So let's start getting these plants growing right away before we figure out something as easy as a company flow chart, who's in charge of what, SOP manuals. Let's get financing. 6 years ago, I called every capital person in the country. I couldn't find financing. Financing, if you have a good business plan and a good consulting company now, you can find it from people like him, and there's a few others out there. So writing your business plan in pencil, because it's going to change daily with the laws and regulations, and entering the market with knowledge that's out there now. When we did it, there was no blueprint. So find somebody that has a blueprint, let them help you. There's affordable options out there. There's consulting companies that don't charge $300 an hour. We're one of them. There's several good ones, and then pay attention to the laws.
To piggyback on what Greg was saying, really I think the biggest thing that I like to point out to people is just to understand the market, understand the industry, and understand how your product or service fits into the industry, and then really just go get involved. These things changing every day. I mean, every year these conferences are completely different than they were the year before. So you can't be afraid to just start your business and start developing and growing, and things are going to change. You have to be ready for that. You have to be nimble. And also on the financing point, we see a lot of people that think that it's super easy to get financing. It's not. There's more players coming in that are financing this space. You have to be structured properly. You have to be set up to take on the financing. You have to have a business plan. You have to have the right team. It's just like any other industry. You really have to be set up well to succeed. Financing is a big part of that. You need to set yourself up to get the right financing and not take on toxic debt or give up too much of your company early on. So it helps if you can get some traction first. Make sure that you have sales, that you have a real plan and a trajectory, because it's going to end up getting you the best value when you go to the market for financing options.
Great points. And that leads into my next question for Robert, being the resident can of shark, if you will. What do you look for in the companies you invest in? What can people do to be better prepared when they come to you looking for financing?
I think the most important thing is make sure you've got a great management team and a great management bench. It's really, when you start thinking about getting your company financed, it's no different than any other industry. So what you want to do in the first couple of years is really start formulating who you want to be when you grow up. Start thinking about it from the beginning, and don't start looking for capital right away. And most good companies need to go through some sort of self-financing to start with. So if you go into a business thinking that you're going to throw 50 grand into it and you're going to be able to scale it to be this worldwide brand, it's not going to happen. And I think that when we're approached, 90% of what we dismiss is simply because they're not at the point that they're ready to seek financing. We want to see companies that have already got 2 or 3 years of operating history behind them. We want to see a management team that has a vision of how to scale this. When you talk about the cannabis industry, specifically those that touch the plant, you're operating in a vacuum on a state-by-state basis. So being ready to be able to flip a switch the second that the walls of prohibition come down on a federal level, you have to be able to say, I've got a plan to scale this thing immediately, or to already be licensing your technology or your products into other states prior to the time that you're ready to scale it yourself. But for us, we want to see companies, and again, we're probably the latest stage funding source that exists in the space. There's many others that do angel rounds or seed rounds or really help people get off the ground, like ArcView does, or the way some of the guys doing pipe transactions into the public space. We write $4 to $7 million equity checks into companies that already are showing $5 to $10 million in top line. So if you're a smaller business, you might not be ready to seek capital. You might be needing to grow your business first and really concentrate on developing what it is that you do and being the best at what you do. Because I can tell you that 95% of what we see out there is not novel. What we see is And everyone comes to us and goes, oh, our plan is so much different than everyone else's. And I'm here to tell you that I look at these business plans, probably 20, 30 a week. You're not. Someone else is already doing it. So differentiate yourself first, figure out how to make money first, figure out how to start producing 50, 60% EBITDA margins, which are possible in this space. And once you're actually showing profit margins that are large enough, then start thinking about, okay, now what's my next step and what's a reasonable valuation. Don't go out there thinking that because it's the cannabis industry you're going to get a blue sky valuation that's stratospheric. Anything that you think has got blue sky, balance that against illegality, and then think about a real legitimate valuation when you go to market.
Great advice. I hope you all took notes. I know I did. Susan, what was your biggest challenge in getting started, and what was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome before you realized that your business was sustainable?
Employees. So for the first 2 years, we were an employee-driven company. Now we're an employer-driven company. And the reason for that is there was no handbook. It had never been done. So I had to write all the compliance paperwork, work with the med to get everything done. The first job that we had, I have 4 trimmers and myself, and I'm very excited. I'm trimming pot, and I'm a bonsai lady and a gardener, and about an hour into it, the company brings in their 8 trimmers who are very stoned, and they bring in the beer, and they bring in the pizza. So now we have food contamination, alcohol contamination, and so it made me realize those days are gone. Now we wear gloves. I work with the governor's office, I work with DORA, I work with the health department. We need to bring in non-contaminated medicine for patients. My trimmers are getting sick from the insecticides, so now they have to move them all out. I won't have them in the trim room. I want to see clean, green trim rooms like they have in Israel. I do have a few companies who've made that happen. So, and the employees taught me a lot. So when you say what was my biggest hurdle, it was learning about what the employees were going to do smoking on break within the 500 feet med rule, that you can't be there. So we learned a lot. So we are now, I'm amazed and humbled to say, $1 million company, and I've become an advocate. So for an old hippie, guys, let me tell you, now I'm an advocate, I'm in politics, and I have a corporation. Don't ever say never. Find a way to get into the industry. Don't ever say never, because life will come along and give you the best back you've ever had. Just listen.
And I think that speaks to exactly what I just said. She built her business first and put the hard work in to get the business to where it is today. And I think that for a lot of people out here, that's a prime example of what you need to do to get the cannabis business off the ground, is you gotta hustle.
And you have to have faith. You have to be wanting to work 7 days a week. I'm still doing that, although I'm here this weekend. I feel like I'm on vacation. And it's amazing to watch all of the conventions I've been to. This one is by far probably the biggest and the best. I'm excited for Massachusetts. I want Green Mountain Harvest on the United States map in every legal grow. The MED said we'd set the role model. So we have a model to take forward to help other people get into business. So I want to help people be successful and patients to heal. Thank you.
Good, Mary, you want to add something?
I just want to applaud Susan, because the women in this industry were almost non-existent when you started. And that's an opportunity that, I mean, you know what I'd like to do? How many women are in this room right now? So maybe we're looking at 20% of the room. I'm seeing more and more women, particularly in the topicals and the edible industry. They're taking it over. So, anybody that's got a wife or a sister who is thinking about this, get involved with her, because the women are starting to take over the industry.
That's a great point too, and I love the term that Robin used, get out there and hustle. I've always used the term hustle, and a lot of times that's been looked at as a negative word in this industry. Hustle is the guy that's on the street corner selling weed, but hustle is what you make it. You have to hustle in this business. And that stigma is going away. And some of you may have concerns about coming into the business where, what's your family gonna think? I know when I started this, my father's like, are you crazy? You just went to jail for this. I says, yes, but I've been fighting for it. I've been fighting for legalization, and now is our time. I'm not going to shy away. So Greg, you coming from a completely different industry, did you have to sit and have a talk with your wife, your family, your children about, hey, we're going to get involved in the cannabis industry. What do you think of that?
I definitely had to have talks. my wife is a medical card holder, so the conversation was easy with her, but you know, my mom or other colleagues from my former career, you know, you do have to have conversations with them. But what I very quickly found was everybody is interested in this industry. I mean, at least half the people I talk to on any given day have tried or on some regular basis use cannabis. They're interested in the space, they want to get involved, in a lot of cases are envious of my involvement or our team members' involvement. So you'd be surprised at how easy the conversations go once you start having them. And I think that's a real key, is to start having these conversations and have them more often and have them in different settings, because we need to talk about it. I had initially some weird reactions when people would make jokes. I would talk about this business, this really innovative pod-based vaporizer that we're developing with great technology that we're very proud of, that we think is going to help people, and a friend or a colleague would joke, you know, that I'm you know, how's the drug business, or how you know, just, you know, sort of offhanded, off-color jokes, and they'd laugh and so on. And it bothered me initially, but then I realized that that's people's way of sort of accepting this whole thing and laughing it off, and that's just sort of the first couple of stages in acceptance. And I think now it's great. I welcome that, and I joke back, but then I tell them why this is an important industry and how it's helping people and how it's going to really move things forward for society, and then they start coming along. So it's a bit of a process with people, but yeah, I've had many of those kinds of conversations in this transition.
Susan, you want to add something?
I do, because I think education is that a lot of us were never educated about cannabis, about our own healing bodies, about what we can do to take care of ourselves. So education as far as cannabis. The taxi driver, he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Cannabis convention." He said, "Oh, I've smoked for 50 years. Everybody's done it. Well, people have been smoking Mother Earth or Gaia for 10,000 years, and I think you're absolutely right about have more conversation. The grocery stores in Colorado, because you know it's been going on for a long time. We're almost 6 years old. The conversation's often about cannabis, you know. But break open that door. Also, we have to educate people that don't know about what it can do, about its healing properties, not just about getting high. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm from a small town in Iowa, so I guess the talk of the coffee shop there in Sergeant Bluff, Iowa is about Greg Gammon and his Cannabis Ventures. But now some of those same people are reaching out and hiring my consulting company to get into the industry, some of the bigger town leaders, I guess you'd call them. So, like she said, talk. If there's a conversation waiting to be had at you know, every corner bar, every car ride you get into. So it's push the industry on people, and it really opens people's eyes.
Good work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that stigma exists. You know, it's part of the reason I started Social High. I was on Facebook. I wasn't afraid to talk about cannabis, but a lot of my friends weren't, and I knew they smoked. And they said, my coworkers around there, my friends, my family, I'm just not comfortable. And I think a lot of people aren't comfortable coming out into the industry as it is. And Mary, how have you seen that stigma change? I mean, because like you said earlier, if you owned a copy of High Times, you know, you were considered, it was drug porn.
Well, one of my favorite stories is one of the growers that was entering one of our cups in Amsterdam, which was for 27 years. We saw him about 5 years ago, and he said his mother is now putting his cannabis cup on the mantle, when before she would never let anybody know that her son was growing pot. So when your mom starts being proud of you for doing that, I think things have really changed a great deal. And again, I think something like this, like these shows, that's one thing that you never saw before. I mean, I saw a billboard on the way in here for a cannabis counselor, you know, the legal profession. Whoever saw billboards on highways, you know, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. And what we're doing with our cups, we've gone from like, you know, 50 booths to, we had 600 booths in San Bernardino a couple weeks ago. So people aren't afraid anymore. And I think, you know, the fact that it's so, 58% of the population now wants to legalize marijuana. It's, you I'm not saying that this fight is over. It's hardly over. I mean, we've never seen such restrictions from the city of Denver, Colorado, where you think that it's the center of the pot universe right now, and Denver is just layering more and more, and that's what we're up against right now. I think people, the population loves the plant now. I think it's the politicians now that are becoming more and more nervous about it. The DEA certainly doesn't want to go away. So we're still fighting a tremendous fight.
Absolutely. And right here in our own backyard, the politicians are trying to oppose legalization that's on the ballot for November. So make sure you get out and vote in November and let your voice be heard so that they can't hold us down. Nick, how did things change when legalization came about, like in Colorado and stuff like that? How did you see things change in both politics, and how is the advertising space out there? Because I know a lot of places the advertising is very restrictive and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about those battles?
Yeah, certainly. What we've seen has been pretty crazy because we supply packaging, compliant packaging. And for the first few years, everything was generic. For the most part, people were just buying generic, either bottles or bags or even labels to put on their products, and nobody was thinking custom. Well, if you look at any other industry and you go shopping at a grocery store, everybody tries to market their product on the package. That's what the consumer's seeing. That's your opportunity to really show what your product's about, what your brand's about. Well, we knew it was only a matter of time, and really ahead of the curve, we invested in bringing in a full in-house custom design team to handle that side of the business. And we've seen the custom side grow enormously in the last 2 years just because people are realizing, hey, it's competitive. I want to be able to stand out. I want to get my brand out there and showcase what we're all about. And so people are spending more dollars on it. The same with advertising on billboards, which we're seeing now, and some people are restricting that, some jurisdictions, but in California now, right where we are in Orange County, I mean, they're on the main thoroughfares, people just putting billboards up, buy marijuana legally. So that's good to see, and it's good to see that people are now accepting it, going along with what everyone was kind of saying about pushing the industry forward, and that's our job and our responsibility to talk to people. One approach that I've always taken is try to approach things like any other business. So when people look at me, they see an entrepreneur. They don't see a cannabis guy, and that's why I try to dress a little bit nicer when I'm out in front of people. And no disrespect to Greg here, but no, this Greg over here, not you. You look good. But the reason it was really is because people saw our business being in the cannabis industry as oh, hey, that's something different, that's a joke, or that's not a serious business. So I wanted to get rid of that stigma. And our company recently went public on the OTC market, and my goal is to eventually uplist and to get onto a major exchange so I can get in front of the general business world and let people know that there's real entrepreneurs, real businesses in this industry that are taking normal business practices that are seeing, incredible growth, good returns, and just get it out into the mainstream. And I think once we break that barrier, that's just another barrier that's going to continue to snowball this thing forward.
Real quick, we don't wear ties in Colorado.
Robert, I just want to ask real quick, because Nick touched on the public markets, and where do you see that going? Because I've noticed a lot of companies going to the OTC, and I see a lot of companies going in as a means of raising capital. Me personally, I think an IPO is an exit strategy, and there was a lot of that going on in the tech boom, back in the early 2000s and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on cannabis going to the public markets?
So let's be clear about what the public markets are and what the OTC market means, because it's not an IPO market. 90% of the companies out there, including I believe NECC, went through a reverse merge to get onto it. You guys you filed S1. Okay, I apologize. In defense of NECC's company, because what I'm about to say doesn't speak to him, I actually read his Q filing the other day, and he's tracking to do $7 million in top line this year, which is impressive. Most of the companies that are on the OTC right now are not really doing much revenue, and most of them are in the business of selling stock. They're not in the business of selling products. So when you ask these people, why'd you go public, the answer you hear more often than not is for liquidity reasons. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at what their float is, or you look at what their volume is, they're not really doing much trading every day. You know, the company that I was at previously, we had a 90-day moving average of 46 million shares. That was real money. NECC company is actually doing a fair amount of volume. But for the most part, most of those companies aren't. And you have to ask what the motivation is for them going public. And for the most part, a lot of it is just to make sure they can take enough, you know, I hate to say it, toxic debt from bad capital sources to allow them to keep paying themselves while they continue to do nothing. So when you talk about what it is that these guys are doing in the public markets, it's a great question. I'd recommend for most companies that are actually doing something real, and someone comes to you and says, hey, we can get you on the public markets and you can do a reverse merge, or we can spin you out to do it. My advice is run. Don't even consider it. If you're a company that is an ancillary that doesn't touch the plant, that actually has the ability to go public on a real board, a big board, has the opportunity to find an investment bank that can actually help you guys, do an S1 filing and do a roadshow. Those companies, in the next 3 years, you are going to see a wave of real IPOs. It's going to happen, and we are so close at this point. You're starting to see S1s get pushed through on cannabis-based businesses that you're going to start seeing NASDAQ companies that are doing things like exit packaging, or you're seeing companies that are in the ancillary space like products and services. Hydroponics conglomerates could definitely do it, but for the most part, we're not interested as a business in looking at companies that are on the OTC specifically because there isn't all that much that's exciting out there. There's maybe a handful of companies we think are real.
How about harvesting and trimming?
I was just going to ask you, Susan. So, harvesting, trimming, you're growing. What does the future look like? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see the business, and where do you see your business in 5 years from now?
Thank you for asking. I just had a business evaluation done. So my small business is no longer small. As I said, we are looking at moving into Washington, Oregon. We've been asked, actually, to be in Nevada by the Senate subcommittee because of our compliance. One of the things we just added was a former MED officer is now one of our compliance officers. So we offer compliance, we offer metric. My goal is to be more of a one-stop shop for companies, for grows, so that, for instance, one of my associates I've known for 4 years, he just called me and he said, oh my God, my 4 people mutinied on me, I have no help, I'm calling you. So I have a grower there, I have someone managing everything. Okay, my growers actually manage all of it. Label, packaging, harvesting, trimming. I see us because of, I believe it's a sacred space, and I will always hold that space. Going into a grow, we are going into their home, into their sacred space. So being a minister and a healer, integrity, honesty are always very important to me. So I see us growing in that factor. I mean, Jason said, I don't want to deal with a trimmer consciousness anymore or employee consciousness. We are a legal vendor with the MED in Colorado. We W-2 everyone, which is the only legal way to pay in the cannabis industry. So we have all of these compliance rules. We're setting better business practices according to the governor's office. I see us being able to help more and more people by going and taking that pressure off so they can actually go on vacation, because the mythology that the owners are away on vacation all the time is exactly that. It's a myth. Now, I do know owners that like to travel, but we all work really hard. So my company's been slotted within the next 5 years to hit $33 million. I can't comprehend that because that's not why I started this company, but my CFO likes to tell me that. I'm like, okay, but how do we help the patient? How do we help the trimmers? So we are a compassionate, compliant trim company. I want to see us in every state in the union. I want to see compliance. One of the things that's happening right now is that there are about 12 illegal trim companies in Colorado. So they're not paying taxes, they don't W-2 people. I could save $180,000 or $250,000 a year. A point being that we want this industry to be legal. So when people come in and operate illegally, you can bet they're gonna hear from me. So the Division of Labor is like, who are they? What do we do? It isn't about competition. I want to see the industry straightened up, people being given the opportunity to do it the right way. For patients, for all of us. I work really hard, and I love it. So I think, part of it is I don't know where I'm going because I've been contacted by Costa Rica, by the Virgin Islands, so I think part of having a vision and a dream and a business plan is leave it open-ended. It's a live, living program. Don't always box it in by saying, oh, this is exactly where I'm going to be. Because if you had told me 6 years ago I'd be doing this, I would have said, no way. And here I am.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I love how everyone on the board at one point has used the term compliance. You're going to hear that a lot in this industry if you continue on, and it's a very important word, something that you need to be aware of. And Greg, the two Gregs, I want to touch with you guys on one of the biggest compliance issues. Like, this is no longer just a U.S. market, this is a global market. And, you know, Greg having a dispensary, Greg with Canaccord, there's that nasty little problem of getting your product across state lines, and I know there's a lot of licensing going on, especially with Canaccord. Could you, each of you, take a turn and talk a little bit about, you know, that type of compliance and how you were able to expand beyond the state lines into a global business?
I'll go first, and I want to echo what Susan said and what a lot of the other panelists are saying around do the hard work. I mean, it really pays dividends later if you put the hard work in at the beginning, do the research, understand the regulations, make the right decisions. It's amazing in this industry, even more so than any other industry, because of the nature of prohibition, that a decision now could really turn your business upside down in 12 months, and something that you're just not predicting, like interstate commerce, like import-export, and branding and trademarks, like you know, stepping on top of other companies' brands when you don't even know it. I mean, it takes really careful work. And, you know, I would say a big part of our company and the work that we're doing is legal and regulatory. We have consultants, one who's in the room here today, that's helping us with labeling and packaging and recycling programs and all kinds of standards that are different from state to state. And so our company, which wants to be in all 50 states eventually, 24 for now, we have to make sure that we're setting up a business model that is within state. And so is that as efficient or as centralized as it could be if we were federally legal? No. But we're going to do the hard work, and we're going to do it right, and we're going to follow the regulations in the beginning. And then over time, we'll adapt and change our business model to suit, you know, a federal environment and potential centralization of our processing and packaging and so on. So it's a big challenge.
Yeah, so being compliant in every state is something different, and every company that I've started always came out of necessity. So as a dank business owner, I founded Kush Bottles Colorado and started working with Nick, and then we were getting tons of calls to help other people. That's where Denver Consulting Group came from, licensing, SOP manuals. But we have a software system now called Canaccord. We've got 2 banks on board, and it's basically a FICA rating for how compliant your business is. As a banker or a capital funder, everybody's P&L statements look really, really great, but the real risk in these businesses is how compliant are they operating within state laws, because they get shut down the next day. So it's a third-party auditing system. It asks over 500 questions. In Colorado, we've got one for Oregon and 5 other states as well, and it works off those state laws. So being compliant in Colorado is different than being compliant in Oregon, different from being compliant in like California, non-regulated market. Now, California, there's 33 million people. There's 5 million plus in Colorado doing about $1 billion worth of sales. So as soon as this vote in November happens, the biggest race for all these people in California, and we felt it on a smaller scale 5 years ago, is how can we take our business model we have now and completely change it and operate within these rules? Well, so that other software companies, there's great companies like Greg's, and there's funders here that can fund your project. There's people that have operated within the space, so there's real knowledge out there. And to be compliant, compliance is almost a science at this point, not to be, you know, a cliche, you know, saying, but if you get a good software program, a good compliant officer within your company running that, and then doing third-party vendor audits, you're going to be great.
Excellent. We got about 3 minutes left, so what I'd like to do is start with Mary and go down the panel. One last thought, where are we in 5 years, and what is your prediction for when federal legalization happens?
I'm not going to do any predictions at this point because I've been so disappointed now, time and time again. Can I just, the one point that I would like to make is, I think the people in the room that are going to be the most successful are the ones that don't forget the passion for the plant too. I think there's there's the love in your heart that you have to keep there. It's not just a business, and that's what we're moving towards. This is a business, but keep the love of the plant in your heart too.
Oh, I echo that, and one of our advisors, Dr. Lester Grinspoon, who many of you may know, has guided us to stick to the flower. The nature's intention is the best way that is to be delivered. So we're all about the ground flower and the plant. So that's great. I would say one last thought is that what's exciting to me and to us is the arrival of the mainstream coming into this industry, and that's going to change things in a big way. They will have a different set of expectations and needs and sense for regulation and testing and consistency and brand and trust and just things that we've got to bake into this industry. So the mainstream is coming, and that's exciting, but it's also daunting.
My last words would be, for everyone to pay attention to what's happening in November. I think that's, Greg's point about California is going to be a $10 billion market when it goes recreational. That's going to be on the ballot in November. Massachusetts, another big ballot initiative in November, and then also Nevada, if they pass recreational marijuana for the tourist aspect of Nevada, that's another big thing. So I think everyone should be watching in anticipation of what happens in November and be prepared, because if these giant markets open up, there's just simply not enough cannabis-focused businesses around today to service the needs of the market. We're seeing that right now, and just with providing packaging. I mean, not only us, but the entire packaging industry has been strained to provide enough for some of these markets, especially around 420. It's going to be monumental if 2 out of the 3 states pass in November.
So next 5 years, I think the biggest threat and the best thing both at the same time that's going to happen to this industry is the pharmaceutical side, the medical side of this plant. It's great to get high, have fun, party weed, recreational Colorado, but how many of these people have been recreational smoking for the last 22 years because they're treating an ailment they don't even know why they're smoking the plant? So as Big Pharma gets into this industry, it's going to change. Are we going to still be able to exist like we are now? Is High Times going to still be able to have a cannabis cup or that kind of stuff? So yeah, exactly. You guys will make it through, but Big Pharma is where it's going, and the FDA is already starting to send letters out to CBD producers in Colorado that are extracting CBD from hemp. So Big Pharma.
So, first of all, I think for all of you that don't know cannabis history as well as you may want to, we should probably say thank you to Mary and the work that she's done. So without Michael Kennedy and the High Times crew, literally none of us would be here today, none of us. So when you talk about the hockey stick change that's happening in the cannabis industry, everyone talks about this new industry. Mary's been here for 20 years doing what she's doing. This industry has been around for 50, 60, 70, as long as you can think about it, there's been a cannabis industry. What we're seeing right now is the orderly conversion to a legal cannabis industry, largely on the back of the work that her and her team have done. So when you look at what Nick said, which is the watershed moment of this year's November election, I could do a legislative landscape discussion for the next hour, but there's actually 7 states that potentially have an adult use recreational ballot on the books. 2 happening through the State House in Vermont and Rhode Island, and then Arizona, Nevada, California, Massachusetts, and Maine as well. And I think Maine will get back on the ballot. More importantly, what we really need to think about when you talk about medicine in this plant is Florida and Ohio are both on the ballot this year, and Governor Wolf just signed into law Pennsylvania's law, which means that the 3 biggest political swing states in the United States, being Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, are now about to tip the scales in the favor of not just the number of states with adult use, with medicinal programs. So it's great that we'll have potentially 11 states with adult use recreational, but you're going to have 26 states potentially by the end of November, and the vast majority of the American population having access to medicinal cannabis. So when you want to talk about what's happening for, to your point on federal, I don't know when it's going to happen afterwards, but if we can get these ballots to win, it's going to happen soon in the next presidency. I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat, if you can actually get these numbers to work. So my final thought on this is, many of you guys paid for this conference today. I highly advise you actually take the same amount of money you put into this conference and dedicate it to either the Marijuana Policy Project, or the Drug Policy Alliance, or the National Cannabis Industry Association, or Students for Sensible Drug Policy, or ASA. Find an organization that you support, that supports this industry, and please, please get behind it.
I'm really humbled to be with my esteemed colleagues today. This has been awesome. I think what I would say, I know in my heart what I would say to you all is, throw away the word I can't. I don't know. How do I do it? Find someone that's in the industry. There's lots of us that bring your vision forward. I believe we're going to have 2 to 5 years before it's rescheduled and pharma comes in. I don't think I'm going to give up when they come in, but things are going to change. I think if you can get in now, in the next year or so, you have a tremendous opportunity to follow your passion, to help people heal, and to change the planet. And to me, that's what this is about. Thank you.
You guys are awesome. It has been an honor to moderate this panel. Thank you. For everybody out there, swing by the Social High tent. We have a signed Tommy John guitar we're raffling off. All you have to do is download the Social High app and you're entered to win.